Hi guys, my name is Kat. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am doing a wrap up and I am super excited for it because I have 9 things to talk about and the lowest rating for them was 4 stars. So I have had an amazing little reading section block for the last week and a half where I've been doing my newts. So I've been doing newts to become a magizoologist, as well as reading Australian literature, as well as reading female written fantasy for the Femme Fantail Readathon hosted by Jean Bookish Thoughts. So I have just been loving reading life lately, and also I'm wearing my favorite top, which I just got the other day. Isn't it just darling? Like, I feel like a damsel princess, which my style's kind of all over the place, but damsel princess is definitely one of my favorite styles that I have. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it because I have so much to share with you guys. So again, these are gonna go from least favorite to most favorite, but honestly, they're all amazing and I recommend all of them. So I'm just thrilled because it's very rare that I ever have a wrap up where every single book is one that I would absolutely recommend. So yeah, let's get into it. So one of the books that I read for my newts was The Arrival by Shaun Tan. Now, this is an illustrated novel, and I didn't know this, but there are actually no words in it. So I'm not sure if it counts. I'm gonna count it anyway. But it is about the immigration experience. The way that Shaun Tan illustrates is so lovely and so powerful and so beautiful and thought-provoking. For instance, we follow a man in the beginning who is going to immigrate without his family. So he is going to leave his wife and his daughter behind to go to a new land where he is going to make money in order to bring them later. The man's journey takes him to a land far away where everything is very foreign to him, and one of the best points about this novel is that it views immigration through the eyes of someone who's never been to that country before, where everything is strange, such as getting around, reading, navigating like the transportation system, even finding food, and the creatures that you'd see might be terrifying to you because you've never seen them before. This is just an excellent illustrated novel all around, and I really loved the way that everyone the man interacts with is also an immigrant themselves. So you get flashbacks of those immigrants' countries of origin and how they came to live in this new country, and I really appreciated the different viewpoints, and I think it was just stunning, and it's very thought-provoking and lovely. This is the favorite book of one of my aunts who is an immigrant herself from Scandinavia to Australia, and I can totally see why. It's really powerful and it's an absolute sweet, endearing story. So if that sounds at all interesting to you, go ahead and pick it up. And I'm going to continue because the next one is also Shaun Tan, but in a completely different vein. And this is Tales from the Inner City. And this is actually a short story collection paired with images. So every short story ranges from a few paragraphs to a few pages, followed by an illustration. So I am just going to explain it to you briefly that the overall theme in this is man and society and urbanization and the way that it impacts and the way that it intersects with the lives of animals that we use for food production, or even that we have cleared out of urban spaces, and how humans and animals impact one another, and how the humans are impacting the world around them. So this is super thought-provoking. So some of these stories are really dark. One of the stories in here, I was like, wow, that is super dark. And some of them are really light and fluffy, and I really loved this. And every story is paired with an animal. So in the beginning, you're shown this spread, and there is one story for each of these animals. So my favorite one was for this animal here, the moonfish, and it is also the cover here. So it follows a series of young boys who are fishing off of their rooftops, and they are trying to catch the elusive celestial moonfish. And they want to catch it because, one, it's magical, and no one has ever caught one before that they know of, and also it will bring a lot of money to their family. And that story was just so sweet and so heartbreaking at the same time, which is kind of a lot of the themes in here. So Shaun Tan is just an amazing writer, amazing illustrator. So if you have a chance to pick up anything by him, I highly recommend it. Yeah, so I'm really excited. And this was also for Magic Zoologist. This was for Beautiful Cover, and then I read this one afterwards, which was, I think, under 150 pages. So yes, these were both really good, and 4 stars. So the next one I want to talk about is a book that I read for Femme Fatale Readathon, and it is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. I read this for the YA challenge, and I was not disappointed. I gave this 4 stars. So we are following a main character who is kind of a famous artist in her land, and she is a prodigy. At 17 years old, she is one of the best portrait painters in all of the land, and she is often sought after by fae creatures who cannot do craft themselves. So anything like painting or cooking or sewing, they cannot do. So they seek her out for portraits of themselves. And one day, one of the princes of the dark fae courts comes and asks to have his portrait painted. And when she paints it, she paints something that she shouldn't have into the painting, and he comes back and basically kidnaps her away to the fairylands, and the adventure ensues. So some of the strengths of this novel was it was unputdownable. I started it at the library when I should have been doing work, and then I just read it in one sitting, like just straight through. So it was great. It takes you away, and I found it so enjoyable. I really loved both of the characters. However, I will say that it felt a smidge insta-lovey to me, which is one of my least favorite tropes of all time. However, I was willing to forgive it because they did fully develop each of the main characters, and they had known each other over months. So I guess it's not that insta-lovey, it's more like we don't see them every single day of those months, so it maybe felt more insta-lovey than it actually was. And the strengths of this novel was that the author doesn't try to do more than this story can hold. So it is very well plotted, I personally think, where every single plot point and action shows us something more about the world, or develops their characters, or develops their relationship, or like reveals a twist. So I thought it was really well done. I couldn't put it down. And I will absolutely be reading A Sorcery of Thorns, I think it's called. The next one featuring a librarian and a Slytherin Bay, like is what I've heard. So I really enjoyed this, and I found it really endearing, and I give it 4 stars, and I will be reading from this author in the future. I know that the next one is also a standalone, and I would really love to see what this author can do with like a duology or a trilogy, because I think that the plotting is quite tight, and a lot of the actions of the characters have been set up beforehand. Like, we understand their motivations, and we understand how they think and what is driving them. So when they do things, I can really see that they would actually do that in real life. So I really appreciate the way that she portrays like the development of the characters and the plot, and I thought the pacing was quite good as well. So I just would love to see a duology or trilogy from Margaret Rogerson. So if you also agree with me, go ahead and leave me a comment down below, because, or if you've read Sorcery of Thorns and you think that I should read it soon, also let me know. So the next book I'm going to talk about is another one that I read for Femme Fatale Readathon, and it is Girls of Paper and Fire, I believe, by Natasha Ngan. And I read this for YA, BME author, and also queer. So we are in a world where there are essentially like 3 classes of beings. So there are full demons known as the moons, steels, which are human demon kind of hybrids, and then humans, which are, you know, like the lowest, and they're called the paper caste. So the king has decided that every year he will take 8 paper girls from the paper castes as his concubines. Yay! And we are following the main character who is one of these paper girls, and she didn't ever want to be. That wasn't on her radar because in her childhood her own mother was taken in a raid, and it was never clear if she was killed or if she was brought to the king. So the main character wants absolutely nothing to do with the king or the court system at all, but when she is taken there and she joins the other 8 girls because she is the 9th girl, and she is chosen because of her golden eyes, which is said to bring good luck, and the king is very superstitious. So we are following the main character as she's navigating the court system and interacting with the other girls, and she finds out that some of the other paper girls have their own plans. And the reason that this book was so highly rated for me was largely due to the world, and I was just so intrigued by the different ideas and the caste system and the way that the paper girls interacted with one another, and also the portrayal of assault, and how the author really, I think, did such an excellent job of portraying the different ways that people might react to it, and I thought she really handled it with care. And the reason it only gets 4 stars though is because I think that some of the plot points were convenient, and I also felt like the ending was rushed. So I thought the pacing throughout the first 75% of the novel was excellent, and then the pacing at the end was a little too rushed for me and a little too convenient. However, I will absolutely be reading the next one, which comes out soon, I think. It's Girls of Storms and Shadow, maybe? Yeah, but I did really enjoy this, and I gave it 4 stars overall. And the next 4 books that I'm going to talk about are in the Monstress series, and they're actually 4 volumes, each one which has 6 chapters, I think is how that goes. So I read 24 chapters overall. So Monstress is if you took Art Deco, steampunk, and you mashed them up, and then the main character was a young girl who's 17 who has had a very, very rough life in a war-torn alternative 1900s Asia, matriarchal Asia, and she may or may not have a demon god inside of her, and there are so many things to love about this. So I read this for Femme Fantail Readathon, and I was intending to read it as the sequel challenge, but then I realized that I couldn't remember. I have previously read volumes 1 and 2, but in order to read 3 and 4, I had to reread 1 and 2, so I read 1, 2, 3, 4, and it is so good. But I will say that this is extremely dark. So we are following a main character named Micah who is looking for details of her past because she can't really remember. And when we open, she is being sold as a slave or a body to be dismembered for its parts. It is very gruesome from the get-go. So there are so many things in this book. Basically every trigger you could think of is probably in here, and if you cannot handle gore, absolutely don't read this. Yeah, so I love this series. It's probably one of my favorite graphic novel series of all time. I give it 4 stars. The weakness of this series though is that the beginning is a little rocky because you're just thrown right into it and you don't really know the background of the characters or how the world is set up. You're just kind of like thrust into it and you can't really figure it out at the beginning. So you have to kind of just go on faith and try to remember all the details as you go. And I definitely think my second reading of the first and second volumes really strengthened my understanding of the third and the fourth, which is something to keep in mind, that if you start it and you're like, what's happening? Keep going, you will understand. It's just that the beginning, they don't really take time to explain things. So yes, I highly recommend it. It's very dark and the art is absolutely beautiful. And it is written by Marjorie Liu, who I believe is Chinese, and then it is illustrated by Takeda, I believe, who is Japanese. So yeah, awesome women doing their thing. It's awesome, and check it out. Okay, and my top read so far in this month is actually one that I wasn't anticipating reading at all. It's come completely out of the blue, and I said that I was reading it for Femme Fantail Readathon because it is fantasy written by a woman. However, it's more that I saw that it was published, and I had been waiting for it for a while, and I had been watching it, and it has super high ratings on Goodreads, nearly 4.5, and it is The First Girl Child by Amy Harmon. Now, I have never read Amy Harmon before, but the plot sounded super intriguing, and it just kept getting high ratings, so I was very intrigued. So this is a world where a Norse god has pulled up an island from the seabed, and the island is shaped like a 6-point star where there are 6 clans, and in the middle of it is a raised area where there's the king's palace and a temple, and essentially they're supposed to balance each other like checks and balances. So there is a king, and he is selected from one of the clans, and the king can rule as long as he's alive, and then when he dies, the next clan in order, a king is selected from that clan. So the way that it works is the temple guardians are the ones who choose the king from the next clan in order. So it's so interesting that the succession pattern is going like basically around the island so that no clan can ever rule for too long, and that it's a very fair system, as well as like if someone wants to be a successor and they kill the king, they won't get the throne in their lifetime probably, unless they kill all of the 6 remaining, the 5 remaining options. So it's really such an interesting system. So it's very intriguing. And the temple keepers are the guarders of the rune magic, and the rune magic they use largely to help the king make decisions. So they use blood magic in order to see into the future and to divine the choices that they should help make and who they should pick as king. So when the book opens, we are following a brother and a sister who are kind of playing, and we first learn about the rune, the blood magic of the world, and then we kind of fast forward, and the brother has become a keeper at the temple, and the daughter is a famed warrior. So one day the brother feels something, and it's that his sister is in danger, and he uses blood magic to see where she is, and she is in the forest right below the temple. He runs down to her assistance, and she is bleeding out onto the ground, and she is holding a newborn baby against her chest, and she lays a curse with the last of her blood, which is draining out, and that curse is that there shall be no females born in the entire land until something has come to pass. So she gives the baby to her brother, and the baby Bear is raised at the temple. And from the beginning, Bear is super strong, and he has like agility. He's very kind and very loving, and he is raised amongst the keepers. And then on the other side, what happens is there is a baby born, and it is a girl, and it is the baby of the king. So Bear is charged to be the protector of the little girl named Alba, who is the sole princess and like the youngest girl in all of the land. And the story goes from there. And this is so good in my opinion. The plot was super tight. I love it when certain things are done so cleverly by the author, whether they knew what they were going to do and they work back to make sure there's no gaps, or going forward they're just so careful about the plotting. And I'm not going to say much else about the plot because I don't want to ruin any of the twists, but it is so good. And the number one thing that I loved about this, and the reason it gets 4.5 more than just 4, is that I felt such a connection to the characters and the different ways that love was portrayed. So love is the main theme in this book, where it's the love of a mother to a son, and a mother to a daughter, and an adopted father to an adopted son, and found family, the relationship between love of friends, romantic love, non-sexual love, like love for country, love for religion. It just explores devotion and love and commitment in such an amazing way. And the reason that I just loved it so much was, how they discuss the ways that we give ourselves to people and the way that we stand up for what we believe in due to love. So although war is very much a part of this narrative and very much something that happens throughout, and there is a lot of darkness in this book, the overriding theme is love. There were so many things to love in this book, and I really highly recommend it. I give it 4.5 stars overall. It is really good, and I'm going to keep my eye out for anything else that this author writes. So that wraps up my latest books read. This was book 117 to 125. This year my goal was to read 120 books, so I have met and exceeded my goal in August. So I think that I might try and make my goal to reach 200 by the end of the year. That would be dope, and I think it would be my new record, so we'll see how it goes. I hope that you're having an awesome day and that you learned something, and I hope that you have found a new book that you want to read from this list. I am super jazzed. I've had an awesome reading time, and I will hopefully continue to have it. I think that I was reading a bit of too much dark fiction in the beginning of August, and reading some fantasy has really been the breath of fresh air that I needed to get my reading back up to a faster pace. So I'm having a great time, and I can't wait to check back in with you guys later. I'm gonna say bye for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in another video. Bye!